Do you ever wake up and everything feels easy? You're in the zone. You leap out of bed, you drift downstairs, have a lovely breakfast.
Yeah.
Laugh easily, go out and train, and it's just so enjoyable. Motivation levels are high.
This is awesome!
Well, that doesn't happen as often as I'd like it to. More often than not, I feel like I have to drag myself out of bed because I'm knackered, get myself downstairs, force down my breakfast, and then slog my way through a training session that is so painful it makes me want to gouge my own eyeballs out with a spoon and eat them. And it's usually when my willpower is at its lowest anyway. It's either in an evening or really early in the morning. So sometimes my willpower alone doesn't cut it, even when I wake up with a full battery, because I know what's ahead. So, what is it that gets you out of the house even when your motivation levels are right down there? Because we all know that we have other pressures in our life on top of the training. We've spoken about it before. You have financial pressures, relationship worries, work stress. There's a list and it goes on and on. So when that is the case, do you get yourself out of the house and still train, or does it go on the back burner? The reason I ask is because I had a brilliant conversation with a friend of mine, a fellow level 3 coach and one of the coaches at Greenwich Tritons in London called Scott Fenwick, who has a brilliant idea that can really help athletes and coaches take control of their training. It is genuinely going to help me, and I really think it can help you too. And it's about burning matches and playing jokers.
Yeah, so concept behind this is pretty simple. So with coaching, either self-coached or where you've actually got a one-to-one coach, people work off a plan. And the challenge you have when you put together a plan is there are often times when you've got other stresses than just the physical stresses. The idea behind this, those mental stresses that build up, whether it's a really tough day at work, whether it's horrendous weather, whether it's some family commitments that come up unexpectedly, anything that's putting you under a huge amount of mental load where you have to dig exceptionally deep to do your session. This is where it comes from, and it's how do you capture that? So the physical side, when people talk about burning a match, when you look at endurance sport, most people understand that concept. It's a very short, highly intense, real effort. You can take the same concept and apply it mentally. So the idea being that if you've had to burn a mental match, you've had to do the equivalent of what you would do physically, but by pushing yourself. So you've put in some dig deep effort in order to achieve that session. As I say, it's the stresses that could be mental stresses. These wouldn't be applicable for things where you get injury worry. So it's not about pushing through when you're not feeling 100%. This is more about the mental digging deep. And it's a way in which to capture some of that. The flip side of it is where you've had to really dig deep and then said, you know what, I'm not going to do this, it's too much. And often with that you get some association with guilt. So the other side of this, mentally, you can play a joker. You can say, I'm not going to do this session. If you're working, for example, with a coach, over maybe a 2-week period, you would capture how many of those matches you've burnt, how many of those jokers you've played. And if you need to calibrate this with your coach, but if it's within what you both agree is reasonable, say it's one of each. Once it starts getting above that, maybe there's some warning signs there.
Yeah.
So if there's 2 sessions you've dropped out of where you played jokers, or you've had to really dig deep for another one, suddenly you're up to 3, it's quite a big percentage of your fortnight. That's where there's maybe some amber signs there. Up to 4 perhaps, bright red, something's not working out, you really need to reevaluate what's happening. So it's really a way in which to quantify some of this effort that you're having to put in, or the reasons why you're having to drop sessions, that mental demand, that mental stress and load.
Training doesn't take into account life, does it? And that's the beauty.
No.
That's the beauty of that little trick, really.
Yeah, the car breaks down,
Yeah.
suddenly you've got a huge financial problem.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare to get to the pool, and you're just like, okay, I still need to get this swim in.
It's brilliant because it is just such a clear way of saying whether your training's working or not. If they are burning lots of matches and playing lots of jokers, it's not working. It's not fitting with life.
Yes.
That was explained brilliantly, and yeah,
That's
that
all
was
right.
recording. That was recording.
Yeah.
I reckon I've got it.
Even on the surface, that is a superb idea to me. The fact that you can give yourself the autonomy to make a decision, to decide where you're going with your training, to either push yourself that little bit more or give yourself a let off without feeling guilt is gold. But there is another level to this that is even more genius that Scott and I spoke about, and that is the fact that merely giving you jokers and matches to play gives you autonomy. It gives you the ability to determine what happens to you. So whether you're self-coached or whether you're coached, the mere fact that you get to control, to a certain extent, what you're doing is very powerful. In Daniel Pink's book Drive, he talks about motivation and what motivation is, whereas we started with motivation 1.0 and then we went to motivation 2.0, which is that's the old motivation, the carrot and stick motivation he calls it, where you seek out reward and try your best to avoid any type of punishment. And we've moved on as a society from there to motivation 3.0. The core principles to motivation 3.0 are threefold. The first one is that you have to seek or have purpose. The second one is that you are seeking mastery. And the third one is to find or have autonomy, which is the ability to control to some extent what you're doing. And that's where these jokers and matches come in. The mere fact that you have an element of control may be enough. If I speak for myself, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to use any of them at all. I might have to dig deep and use one, or I might have to play a joker, but I don't think I will, because I think the mere fact I can is enough. And it motivates me, and I'm pretty sure it can motivate you too. But I am always gonna have both the matches and jokers in the back pocket just in case I need them. Whilst you're watching this, I will have run the London Marathon, or walked it depending on what happened to my hip. So watch out for that vlog next week, because that is the London Marathon, my first vlog, coming next Sunday. But first up is a tutorial on Tuesday, and I'll see you then.